Call the regular monthly meeting of the Johnson County Fiscal Court together at this time, please. First item is pledge of allegiance. Commissioner Adams, would you lead the pledge?
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Next item is approval of the minutes of the special meeting on July 17th and the August 4th, 2017 bid opening for Denver Branch Bridge. You've got a copy of those in your packet. Have any questions about the minutes, amendments, suggested changes?
Move to approve as read.
I have a motion by Commissioner Daniel to approve the minutes as presented.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Campbell. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is the approval of or to transfer for the fiscal court. You have that. Oh, I'm sorry, I jumped over the monthly bills. You have a copy of the monthly bills in the packet as well. There was some in the file folder. You got a chance to see those, didn't you? Okay. Hattie, is there anything extraordinary about the bills?
Not as usual, Judge.
Okay. Standard cost of doing business, I guess. Any questions at all with regard to the bills?
Make a motion to approve the monthly bills as presented.
Have a motion by Commissioner Adams,
Second.
second by Commissioner Daniel. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign? Motion carries. Next item is the transfers for the fiscal court. This is a monthly transfer that kind of leaves a little bad taste in my mouth each month because our bills keep getting higher and higher and higher at the jail. And I know there's not much we can do about it, Judge, but if you ever see an extra dollar laying around somewhere, try to shift it our way. I think jails are probably the largest growing cost of any county government in the state of Kentucky right now. And I thought House Bill 468 was supposed to lower that population, and I guess there was some lowering at one time, but it seems to be back the way it used to be. But having said that, it's mandated by Constitution that the county have a jail and we pay the bills. So, having said all that, I would entertain a motion to transfer $40,000 from 4909 general fund to 4910 in the jail fund.
Make that motion, Judge.
Motion by Commissioner Gamble,
Second.
second by Commissioner Daniel or Adams. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, motion carries. The next item on the agenda is, and we are honored to have with us this evening, our Chief Circuit Judge, John David Preston. John David, in his spare time, was also very well known as a local historian. I guess, how many years you've been involved in writing about Kentucky history?
Since 1972.
Well, you've done an awful lot of good. I don't know how you and your buddy that just passed away, were you going to miss him so much?
That's when I started with him, 1972.
Oh, you guys really have been kind of the resident historians, I guess, for the county, and we appreciate everything you've done so far. And I suspect, and when I got your petition and your letter, and I'll just scan over this real quick, and then you can you can comment. The Oxford Cemeteries Committee, Inc. Comes now for removal of 3 graves pursuant to Kentucky Revised Statutes 381.755 and states as follows. Number 1, the graves of Samuel L. Oxford II, Agnes Wells Oxford, and Nancy Ann Oxford are located at Hager Hill, Johnson County, Kentucky, across Highway 321 from Blockhouse Bottom. Samuel Oxford was born on August 7, 1791 and died December 13, 1883. Agnes Wells Oxford was born December 7, 1820 and died May 3, 1908. Their daughter, Nancy Ann Oxford, was born February 27, 1849 and died in 1850. Judge, if you would, if you want to, please tell us, tell the court what your intent is here by
All right.
this motion.
The request that we have made is to remove these graves from their current cemetery and move them to what I will call the Samuel Oxford number 1 cemetery, which is across the road out in Blockhouse Bottom, which is owned by the airport board. The reason we would like to move these graves is that the graves this small cemetery became very much overgrown. My daughter and I went up there in February. We had a hard time finding it. It was so overgrown. When we did find it, there was a chain link fence around the cemetery, and there was a gate, but we couldn't open the gate because there was a tree growing through the gate. Not over the gate, but through the chain links. I couldn't get in there. Ellen's a little younger, so she climbed the fence and found a couple of graves, and we later found the smaller grave. It's our request, pursuant to the statute, that I cited, to be allowed to remove these 3 graves to the Samuel 1 cemetery next to the airport. We received consent from the airport board as part of your packet. We received consent from the owners of the cemetery, and I need to point out that these 3 graves are kind of in an odd position. The head of the 3 people buried are owned by one entity, and the feet are owned by another entity. After, I think, Sam and some of them went out there and cleaned it out, I actually could see the surveyor's pin that Bo put there. It kind of cuts it out down the middle. In the past, when I've taken Oxford family people on a tour, I take them out to the cemetery in the bottom, and we stop up there down below the hill where this is. I point up there and say, there's where it is if you want to go. Of course, no one has taken me up on that at this point. But at any rate, we have consent from the owners of the cemetery, consent from the people at the airport board. I put in the order that, and since Ellen and I went up there, the people at the doctor's office have put up a chain link fence behind their property. And I have no complaint about that, but you can't get in. The only way to get in is to go up on Annie's Lane, jump the creek, walk behind the fence up the hill and get to it. So our plan is to move it to the other cemetery, which is very easily accessible and can be maintained, and that's what we're seeking from the fiscal court.
So there's no other parties are affected in any way?
No, they're not. I put a notice in the paper. There are 7,000 or 8,000 descendants of these people. I put a notice in the paper back in April or May, and the statute says 60 days. More than 60 days have gone by. Put the notice as to this meeting. No one has contacted me, and I don't guess anybody's here on this other than me. So no one has raised any objection. And we've raised money to maintain the other cemetery.
Okay, Mike, you skip. Everything seems in order?
It seems to be in order to me. I read the statute, and I looked at the petition, and I think he attached some pictures at some point. I saw those as well. It clearly needs to be dealt with and addressed, and this is probably in the best interest of those that were buried there and the heirs as well that want to come visit. Only makes sense to me.
Any other comments? If not, having considered and listened to the presentation by Judge, it would be my recommendation that we authorize the Oxford Cemetery Committee to remove the graves mentioned earlier, Samuel Oxford II, Agnes Wells Oxford, Nancy Ann Oxford, from the cemetery where they're currently buried, and to reinter their remains with the confines of Samuel Oxford Cemetery located on property owned by the Prestonsburg Paintsville Airport Board. Have a motion to that effect.
So moved.
A motion,
Second.
second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
I have an order that sets out the statutory government original 2 copies of that.
It sounds great. We're gonna have to say we'd have to put this to you tomorrow, but you're ahead of the game.
James Andrews is ready to go tomorrow. Oh,
You want,
I'm very ready.
okay.
He's already given me a copy.
yeah. James Andrews is ready to go to work tomorrow morning.
Ed, did you get a copy?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, I've got it.
Thanks, Judge.
Here's the original. Keep it on. Here's the original.
Excuse me, just for clarification, will that be work to start tomorrow morning then?
Yes. It's in such a location that you can't use equipment. They have to hand dig.
Ooh,
Yeah, so it's just what it is. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Judge. Next item on the agenda is a resolution for the Kentucky, regarding the Kentucky Mountain Recreation Authority. That is item number 6 in your packet. This board originally, I guess, was set up, Laura, help me here, was there
I'd be happy to.
like 7 or 8 or 9 counties originally, weren't they?
Originally, there were 9 counties, but there were 16 counties that were targeted as counties that could participate in the authority.
And Johnson County being one of those counties, and me having been contacted recently regarding our inclusion and offering us an opportunity to pass a resolution and join the board. At this time, I would like to read the resolution that we have before us and you have in your packet. Whereas the Kentucky General Assembly passed House Bill 156, an amendment to KRS Chapter 148 during the 2017 regular session, and whereas the bill creates a Kentucky Mountain Regional Recreation Authority as a municipal corporation and political subdivision of the Commonwealth, covered by at least 16 participating counties, and whereas Johnson County is a county included in the Kentucky Mountain Regional Recreation Authority as a target county. Therefore, be it resolved by the Johnson County Fiscal Court that we do agree to participate in the formation and governance of the Kentucky Mountain Region Recreational Authority as established in KRS Chapter 148 and appoints, I'm going to get turned down here on my first appointment with regard to this, in recognition, I think, of what Laura has shown all of us that has occasion to drive up and down the street for the last couple of months. A facelift is underway. I don't know if you missed it or not. I don't see how you can if you did. But I think they've done a wonderful job with regard to your group of volunteers. And I would like to recognize your, I guess, commitment and dedication to trying to improve the quality of life in Johnson County and eastern Kentucky. And hereby appoint you to serve at the pleasure of the judge of Johnson County on this board, if you would care to continue to do so.
Judge, I'd be honored. I feel like the Kentucky Mountain Regional Recreation Authority has been established in response to economic need for our region, for our eastern Kentucky region. We no longer have the ability to rely on coal or coal severance. We don't have any burgeoning economic helpers, jumping at us. They're not falling out of the sky. What we do have is an ability to participate in this authority and other tourism-inspired projects to bring economic dollars here. And Kentucky, last year saw a $14 billion tourism market. That's a huge economic impact, and I believe that with the establishment of the authority and with progressive-minded individuals like yourself, we have every opportunity to acquire our part of that money. And I'm happy, very happy to represent our area, and our team will be representing as well. We do everything as a team, and we've been able to see some progress, and I think there's more to come, and we're very excited to be a part of it.
Thank you so much for your effort, and just a real quick example of loss of revenue in other areas. As you mentioned, we just learned last week, obviously one of the largest employers in eastern Kentucky, Booth Energy, was cutting its workforce. I guess every single job that they were operating in Kentucky pretty much at that time has been affected. Johnson County is somewhere probably between 115 and 130 or 40 of those jobs. Very good paying jobs, and Johnson very well may not be back. But we do appreciate what you guys are doing, and it's my pleasure to do this. At this time, I would like to request a motion to adopt the resolution and appoint you to serve at the pleasure of the judge on that board.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Commissioner Campbell,
Second.
second by Commissioner Daniel. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. I'm going to skip over the next item and go to the Trail Town Committee. We have another resolution or item of business, rather, it's not a resolution, that is associated with the Trail Town. Back to those highlights and facelifts that we talked about a little while ago. There's one parcel of county property that they've approached us a couple of weeks ago and said they would like to bring this group in and I guess pressure wash the exterior of the old jail building out here, maybe do some sandblasting or something of the metal and try to clean that thing up. And would you like to go ahead and elaborate on
I'd be happy to.
who is receiving all this attention and why you're doing what you're doing?
About 2 months ago, we were painting on some property over here on Paint Creek Park, and we were talking about other things in town that we'd like to see freshened up and this thing and that thing. And Justin says, that old jail over there is so cool. And it would be even cooler if it were, cleaned up and straightened up. And I said to him, I said, do you know the history, kind of? You know any of the history on that? And we were talking about it being a WPA building. And then I told him about Tom T. Hall and about a famous country song being written about this jail and about his unfortunate stay there. But so we got to talking about it, and we decided that we would research that further. We reached out to some of our team members. As a matter of fact, Regina McClure was able to provide us with reports that they had done some years ago when they were looking at things they could do with the jail, because it is a historical piece of property. And we determined that probably there could not be done anything with the interior because it has, over the years, dilapidated to the point where it would be very, very costly to do anything, and there's asbestos in there and things like that. But what we could do, and sometimes, as Daddy said, every old barn looks better painted or cleaned up. What we could do is wash the outside, repaint the metal, and we talked about this as a team, and Justin got real excited about it, and he got folks talking about it, and then we decided we would approach you all and see if that was a possibility. But what we would like to do is pressure wash the outside, clean the metal, repaint the metal black, and then one of our local businessmen, Roger Van Hoos, who has the cemetery out at the lake, being a huge Tom T. fan, has offered to dedicate a piece of marble and have it inscribed with the history of the jail, the history of Mr. Hall, the country song, and then also to dedicate part of that to Mr. Howard Sparks, who used to have the Salvation Army in there and was such a community servant, serving very, very many years given to this community. So that's what we'd like to do, and have it be a part of a walking trail, an urban walking trail here in town, and it's already part of the library's historical tour, so it would just be cleaner, prettier, and highlighted better.
And the folks from Olive Hill have volunteered to help us.
They
That's where
have,
he grew up.
yeah. They're very
We,
excited about it as well.
We had some concerns, as you know, about liability, and Mike and I both talked to a couple of local people that had knowledge of that kind of question, and I talked to Steve from Frankfurt, and Mike, why don't you go ahead and
Well,
explain what we can do now?
what we've tried to do is see if we can get coverage for your volunteers. They're not employees, right?
We don't have any employees, no, sir, we're all volunteers.
And we can't get that done. So in order for us to go forward with this, to allow this to occur, we're going to need a waiver and indemnification from each and every volunteer. They need to be at least 18 years old to legally sign it, so you can't have any, no minors.
Right.
And as you know, the roof on that particular building is not in good shape at all, so you can't get on the roof. I mean, that's just not, can't happen right now. So we put that in the waiver, and I think I'll give you a copy of it.
We had a chance to look it over, and we're fine with that waiver.
And just make sure when they sign it, they witness it and return them back to the county judge's office before you start to work.
Good deal.
Everybody that's going to participate has to sign that waiver, Judge.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate that. Do we need action on that?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. I need a motion to accept the explanation, the legal explanation as to how we can move forward with the Trail Town Committee and getting the cleanup of the old jail accomplished as quick as possible.
Judge, I forgot to mention too that we have been in contact with Tom T. Hall's management. We've been in contact with them pretty steadily over the last couple of years, but a lot in the last couple of months. And we hope to have Mr. Hall to come here, as well as the Olive Hill Tourism Department and some members of Mr. Sparks' family for a dedication ceremony when we're done.
You know, there could be a chance of him being able to go into the building and where he was at maybe, and maybe find some exits where he was parking the day.
I don't know, but I bet he's got a nice story about the jailer's wife.
I bet you Tom T. won't think that jail is cool, is what Jason said, so.
Serve eggs and bologna.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And an ugly wife for the jailer, you remember
That's
that?
wife.
But she got better looking every day. I remember that.
He does know so.
A motion,
Make that motion.
motion by Commissioner Adams,
Second.
second by Commissioner Campbell. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you all so very much.
Next item is the resolution. We have the director, I think, with the Paintsville, Johnson County Health Department here with us. Do you want to approach the board? And Julie Bush for the record.
Yes, I'm Julie Bush. I'm the director of the Johnson County Health Department. And I think we all know that in recent months, there's been an increase in the number of contaminated syringes out in our community due to IV drug use. I think we all realize it's a problem. We see it on social media. We hear about it. We talk about it. And the health department is in a position to, well, I should give credit to some of those who have put forth an effort to clean up our county and clean up our city. We have found dirty syringes in the parks and the playgrounds and under the bridges. I know when they were cleaning up Paint Creek Park, they found several under the bridges. They're now in the streets and in our neighborhoods. And the health department is now in a position to help with that. In the spring of 2015, the Kentucky legislature passed a Senate Bill 192 that allows health departments to open needle exchange programs. I'm here basically to request approval of the resolution and answer any questions that you may have. The condition is the health departments are able to open substance abuse treatment outreach programs, which allow participants to exchange hypodermic needles and syringes with the consent of the local board of health and the legislative body of the city and the county in which the program would operate. In October of 2016, the local board of health did approve a resolution to open a needle exchange program in Johnson County. In July of 2017, Paintsville City Council also approved the resolution. I'm here to request approval from the fiscal court to approve the same resolution so that the health department can open a needle exchange program.
Let me just ask a couple of questions, Julie, and then they can move on to the other guys. What kind of due diligence did you guys do? I noticed the contents of the documentation that created this, or that was part of that statute. They put a big emphasis on reaching out to the community. Have you guys done any outreach work? Have you met with public groups, individuals, medical community? Of course, I know you got medical people on your board. Schools. What have you done any of this? Because I read first 5 or 10 issues or items here is assessing the community's need for exchange programs, assessing the community's readiness for the programs, building community support, assemble the facts and interventions, assess stakeholders and knowledge with knowledge and attitudes. And it goes on about street outreach and things of that nature. I don't recall you guys having any. Did you have any public hearings about this? Because I can tell you this, from the time the city council passed theirs the other day, I've had 25 or 30 calls at my office. But I'm just trying for my own edification here. Did you all engage in that?
Most of our work has been done through the County Health Coalition, which involves Mountain Calm, mental health, the school system, through that way to get community support behind the program.
What kind of response have you had from them?
We have had positive response. Actually, I have Jennifer Wilson with me. She heads up our County Health Coalition. She could probably speak to that better if that's
Sure.
okay.
Thank you very much. Our Johnson County Health Coalition is made up of about 25 to 30 members, all from Johnson County. Like Julie said, we have a representative from every school in Johnson County as well as Paintsville. We have the hospitals with Paulby Hall, Mountain Comprehensive Care, the Recreation Center, and everybody at first was a little bit apprehensive. A lot of them had their own opinions. They didn't feel like they had enough knowledge. So we had talked about it for several months, and Julie and I actually did a presentation that we took the information from the state and presented to them, and all of them were very much in support of the program. They said they hated that the community has come to this where it's a need, and they understand people's concerns, but they really felt like it was something that we needed to go forward with, and they were actually the ones that said, it's time, we think, to take it in front of City Council. Because like Julie said, we passed it with the Board of Health, which is a medical community, in October, but we wanted to be sure that the community was ready. So we had done some conversations amongst the health department and our health coalitions and things. And then when we presented in that in early June, they said they felt like it was time for us to take it in front of City Council and the fiscal court.
Anybody else got anything want to add any time?
How would it be funded?
That's a really good question, and a lot of times people have concerns about that. I was actually in our meeting today. The Kentucky ASAP Board, which we share our board with Martin County, it's the Agency for Substance Abuse Policy Change. They put out grants every year, and they are not just a one-time grant. It's not like it's just let's get it started. But we have applied for $20,000. That's how Floyd County is funding theirs. They applied for it last year. And so our application will go in the mail on Friday, and we will hear something at 1st of October. But we can apply up to $20,000 a year. And it's not just for the needles, it's also for education, it's for hepatitis C testing and STD testing, it's for getting the treatment information into our health department as well as naloxone training and Narcan for our first responders, the police department, any type of first responder, and we're also going to offer that to the school systems, because I know that the schools often have a large number of parents and people into their schools, and so that we would at least have somebody in the school trained, if they choose, that they could distribute that. But Pike County offered that, and they opened theirs up to the public. So we, I think, had built our training in for over 100 people.
Who pays if you don't get the grant?
The health department.
That wouldn't be extra on the budget, it would just come out of the health department budget, what we're budgeted for now.
How long could you afford to do that?
They say that on average, $12 a year per participant, and it's really hard to say how many participants we would have. I have actually, after the city council meeting, I spoke with the chief of police, Mike Rowe, and he said that he had talked to many people in our community who are IV drug users, who he is arresting or, talking to, and that he asked them, if this was available, would you do it? And they said absolutely, because it's just like, we can't change people's minds, but we can make their habits healthier. And if you have two needles, a dirty one and a clean one, of course they're going to take the clean one. But if you only have a dirty one, they're still going to use it. And so we aren't just worried, about the user themselves and the spread of hepatitis, but we're also worried about the first responders, the families, how many kids are out in the streets or at the rec center. My dad cleans the park at Van Leer, and he says every time he gets the grass, every week, he's finding needles. And that's, where kids hang out. So,
With that being said, how are you going to do the exchange? Are you going to talk, for
So
instance, if you give me 10, do I have to bring you 10 back in?
So it's 1 for 1 after the first visit. So at the first visit, I believe it's 7 or...
It's up to 40 based on usage.
Yeah, based on usage, they will do it at the first visit. After the first, because that kind of gets it started. After that, it's a 1 for 1 exchange. And we'll be offering this at the health department too.
How many can you get at the first visit?
Up to 40 based on your usage.
Up to 40?
Based on your usage. So it is a completely anonymous program, and they'll go through, a series of surveys and information and things like that. They'll also be made aware of all the testing, pregnancy testing, like I said, STD, HIV, Hep C, and then the options of treatment. So it's not just like you're coming in, sliding your needles in. We really want to build up that rapport. And that's what it takes. Not everybody's going to come in the first day and be like, hey, I need treatment. But once they start building up that relationship, I know Floyd County and Pike County have both sent people into treatment since they started their program.
Okay, with that being said, if I'm bringing in dirty needles and I get pulled over or I get,
Okay,
that's drug paraphernalia.
so if you'll read the KSR bill, there's information about that. You will get a card that says you participate in the Johnson County Needle Exchange Program. Most counties pick a certain color cap so that they are notably different than any other needle. You can't be charged with the needle itself, but the drugs that are found inside the needle you could get charged for. And if you have other, like you had a spoon or other types of paraphernalia, you can get charged with that. It's just the needle itself that came from the health department.
I've got 1,000 questions.
Okay, I'll try to answer.
How many other counties are doing this, and what kind of success are they having with it? And for instance, if you give me 40 needles and I don't bring any of them back, that's 40 more needles that's laying out there in the park.
Most counties are having a lot of, I think
Pike County has 79% success rate.
yeah, 79%
Return rate.
is what their return rate is. I think Floyd County's maybe even higher. This has been around in a lot of different areas before. The larger cities in Kentucky took it, especially when it came out about the Hep C. I think there's either 50 total that are either already functioning or like they have the resolutions passed in the state currently. And like I said, sometimes they take some time. I think Floyd County, the first 2 or 3 weeks had like 4 or 7 or something like that, very low numbers. But once they, the IV drug use community is a tight-knit community. And so word gets around that it's safe, they're not trying to harm us, they're not trying to get us in trouble, they're just trying to protect our health. Then it starts to kind of build up like that. And like I said, Floyd County's at 79, and last time I heard, I think Floyd County's is even higher than us.
I've got
What I
a,
got from Floyd County was they're 58%.
58%?
I've got a printout here, and I don't know how current this is, but they sent it to me from Franklin on Friday. There's about 17 or so functioning units
yeah.
right now.
So-
And we got 120 counties and we got 400 cities.
Yeah.
So there's a whole lot of people that,
So a lot of counties are kind of where we are. They've passed the Board of Health, they've passed City Council or Fiscal Court. Sometimes they pass them all. But it's not like, if it passes today that we're going to be like, okay, Friday, let's do needle exchange. It's definitely something on that once the resolution's passed, we look at the time that we need to get it set up. We want to visit some other functioning ones to see what they like about it, what they don't, what worked for them, to get the kinks out and stuff. So it's not something that people just do as soon as they get the resolutions passed. It's something that you want to go into knowing what you're doing, so that it is successful.
I have a report here from Northern Kentucky, County of Northern Kentucky. They're a county of approximately 15,000 people,
right there near the river.
right in the heart of the drug epidemic. They put this in September 2015.
Mm-hmm.
Since 2015, they've had 123 people visit. They've had 73 that repeated at least once. And it's down to most frequent visits is down to 21. But infrequent visits. And they get about half of the needles returned.
And half of those are out of county, aren't they?
Well, they had 22 people from out of county, so they've only got 101 people from inside their county that's participating.
A lot of counties are having that issue with people coming from out of the county if it's not offered in their county. I know Huntington, I worked with a group from the mayor's office in Huntington, West Virginia over the summer. And that was before Ashland, Boyd County had got theirs open, or Ironton in Ohio. And they were having a huge influx of people from out of state coming over to exchange at theirs. But once it came to their county, people started kind of staying closer to, they didn't have to drive so far.
You have an estimate on how many intravenous users that you've got?
It's a really hard number to get. I mean, not very many people are going to be super honest. I know some of the ones we've talked to, they said even, they had some guy come up, he was a FedEx driver and they thought he was delivering a package, but he was there to exchange needles. So there's a lot of people. I've talked to a physician, a pediatric physician here in that area, and she said she has a lot of parents that look like me coming in there that admit that they are IV drug users. So that's a really hard number to gauge, but we know by just the needles that, like, we hear about, we get calls from the health department all the time. How should we handle these? What should we do? There's needles on my street that you all find on your trails.
I pick them up all the time. I mean, this is an everyday thing. I mean, people call me, I pick them up.
So
We've had, our road crews have, and Lil and them, we used to do cleanups here in the county. We haven't done that in 10 years because we found needles everywhere we went, and we used to have.
my mom is
schools.
over the Van Leer cleanup, and they still do theirs twice a year. And there's not a year that goes by that they don't find needles. And like I say, my dad keeps at the park in Van Leer, and he finds them all the time.
Y'all will be doing the Narcan kids?
Yes, like I said, that is part of the grant that I actually wrote, was to do the training for the Narcan as well with first responders, the general public, and specifically geared towards the school system, because you never know who's going to come in at a Johnson Central football game when there's, 3,000 or 4,000 people there, and you can have somebody go down. So if somebody was trained, or at a school event, a function, a play or something like that. So that's why we thought it might be beneficial to have someone in the school systems trained.
This county had also passed out 194 Narcan kids.
You know, there's, if you've watched the news at all lately, so many people are being, having symptoms of overdose because of just being in contact. In Ohio over the weekend, 3 nurses had to be treated with Narcan because they cleaned a room where an overdose patient was being treated because they had carfentanil and fentanyl. A first responder was driving an ambulance and had touched the patient in the house, and he called back to the guy behind him and said, I feel really sick, and by the time they could get to him, he was passed out over the steering wheel. A lot of states are, or communities are looking for their first responders to always carry 2 Narcans, one to treat the person and one to keep just in case, because just coming in contact with some of these drugs like fentanyl and carfentanil can be very detrimental to our first responders.
Lexington used to pay $1 for each packet of Narcan. They got a $50,000 grant from Central Bank down there when it was about $1 back in 2005. In 2016, 2013, it went from $1 to about $20 a dose. And now the price per unit for many governments and nonprofits is closer to $40, according to a report from the Human Rights Watchdog Group. And Lexington says we can't pay for this anymore. They're going to apply for a $2 million grant.
Yeah.
But they can only get about $300,000 or $400,000 of that. But I mean, so how can something go up from $1 to $40?
I think it's kind of the same thing that went on with the EpiPens. You know how those skyrocketed? I think it's kind of the similar situation, and that's why we are writing for the grant. I met with Mashawna Jacobs, who is the director of the Regional Prevention Center. Their office is in Floyd County, but they serve our county. We met this morning, and we were talking about the Narcan kits and how much they had went up, and like a dual kit for 2 is like $75. However, through the Regional Prevention Center, there are some communities, she said, that were able to buy them in bulk at a cheaper price. But that's about what it is, and it's crazy that it's went up in such a short amount of time. But the need is so much higher. Studies came out over the weekend, or early last week, that opioid overdose deaths are the #1 cause of death in people under 50 now. I mean, it's an epidemic in our area, it's an epidemic in the nation, and, you know, we have to do something.
Fayette County, it says on Friday, every Friday, the department's needle exchange program gives clean needles and often HIV testing to an average of 160 people in less than 5 hours.
Yeah.
Now, what does an HIV test cost?
That's it.
If you guys are talking about 20 grand,
I'm not finance, huh?
if you guys are talking about $20,000 for your grant, it doesn't sound to me like, I hear these
What's the
numbers, and
HIV
see these numbers here, that somebody's winning the battle. And I hope you understand the calls that we get. This is truly a social issue. And it has not been treated like a social issue since it started, in my opinion. We all know if you're going to combat something of this magnitude, the way this thing has grown the last few years, Washington hadn't touched it. You don't see them signing their name on any legislation that says we need to do this and this and this because the people would hold them accountable. You don't find those nice little guys down there in Franklin when they go down for their session. 2015, they got the nerve to pass that bill in the legislature. But guess what? They're not administering that program. They're not paying for that program. They passed a bill, an unfounded mandate, that says, hey, Johnson County, you guys you want in on this? Well, go raise your own money and go and worry about the thing because we're not going to do it. And the problem we've got, and I'd like to have a nickel, and I guarantee my grandmother's turning in her grave right now.
Amen.
It's the idea. The idea. This is a social issue, in my opinion, a huge social issue. But when you can give a pocket full of needles that you know is going to an addict that's going to use them for illegal purposes, what happens if they stick that needle in their arm and they OD? Is there any liability on anybody's part for furnishing something that it killed themselves with? Maybe not yet. I guarantee maybe some lawyer hadn't filed that lawsuit yet. But to me, I'm not sure. That may be unfounded. But it just extrapolating from where we are to where we're going to be going, that kind of stuff worries me. It scares me a little bit. And what bothers me about the payments is, like I said, 20 grand is not much. And we certainly don't have any money. I don't know if the city, they're probably better financial shape than we are. But I worry about starting a program and then stopping it. And whether or not this has been debated enough, that's what bothers me. I just think that it's hard for this group to sit here and make an informed decision on a social issue like this without knowing what the people, the general public, feel about this whole issue.
With all due respect, sir.
Sure.
I don't see it as a social issue. I see it as a public health issue. And that's the way that everybody should see it. I know that a lot of things are based on opinion. A lot of it is religious opinion. A lot of it is the way we were raised, things we were brought up as. We see it as taking care of our children. You know, I apologize. If it was my kids on the park, my 4-year-old said to me, if I see a needle, I don't need to pick it up. They taught them that in preschool because they don't know. Because the gate is open that somebody couldn't toss a needle in. Yes, I understand that someone might die. But if you have an addict, I believe the judge he stepped out and he said, I overheard him say, he said, you don't know the power of addiction. And a lot of us don't. But everybody's family, I guarantee in here, has been touched in some manner. And they will do anything. And whether they're using a clean needle or a dirty needle, chances are, I'd say 99% of the time, they're still going to use it, whether it's dirty or clean. And we just want to do the best that we can to protect them. Because if we don't, you know, a lot of times people can't get clean and can't get help. What if they have Hep C after that? What if they have HIV after that? It's really important to protect the kids in their home. I mean, some kids are being stuck. You know, sexual partners. You may have a kid that only has one sexual partner, but their husband or their wife was an IV drug user before, and they didn't know it, and then they have Hep C and HIV. So I understand that it is socially unacceptable, but these programs have been going on over the nation for over 30 years, and no county has ever seen increased crime, increased overdose, or increased anything negative. It's always been positive.
I don't believe that.
I believe Julie brought some information over, and I can bring you a presentation where it has the CDC, I'm trying to think who it is. There's national reports that say that, and I can bring it to you. It's from Greg Lee at the state level. He is over all the HIV and Hep C information for our state.
Ma'am, I talk to state police every day, just about, at the sheriff's office downstairs. We talk to city police, and I'll bet you, I hate to throw a number out there, but it would scare you. Because every time you ask them, who's this, and what they do, and how many people, and who got impacted, or how many houses they break into, or whose card they steal, I see these guys whacked out on dope, just trying to steal some money to get another fix. So that's the reason, when I hear these law enforcement people telling me, the major part of the small-time robberies and things like that right now are people, addicts mostly, trying to get enough money to buy another fix with.
I didn't say that it cured the drug problem. I said that they never saw an increase from where they are when they started the program.
I don't know about that. And back to you having the issue with your children and being concerned, and you should be. And I can tell you right now, I know the impact of drug addiction. We've lost a nephew in my family, and my sister will never recover from it. So, you know, I know both ends of this thing. But on the other hand, we're sitting here trying to respond to a program that may be one of the most important things that we've considered in a long time. And you walk in the door and say, here, we'd like to have you vote on this. Well, you know, that's not the way this thing works. If it's an issue that we think needs to be discussed publicly, if we think the people have a right to know, the public has a right to know, then we're going to do that. And it's no reflection on you guys. You're doing your job. You're doing what you feel is best and what you're seeing in the health industry. But we're looking at it from a different viewpoint altogether.
Well, that's what I would like to say. As public health officials, I think we need to call it what it is. It's a public health emergency. And it's based on the increase in hepatitis C and HIV. I think we're too focused on the addict and the drug issue and not the disease issue. As public health, we are mandated to do disease surveillance and control communicable disease. That's what this is about. It's not about the addiction part of it. That's not our job. It's our job to get them in, get the clean needles out into the community, refer them to treatment. It's going to take a whole community to do this. The treatment part of it is not our responsibility. We refer that to somebody else. Our concern as public health officials is to call it what it is. It's an increase in hepatitis C and HIV. It's a public health issue.
What is the cause?
What is the cause?
What is the cause of hepatitis C? Where does it start from?
60% of hepatitis C infection is due to IV drug use.
Then we need to address the cause, not the effect that happens from it. We're saying that we're okay. It's okay to do drugs as long as you do it with a clean needle.
We're not saying that at all. We're just saying this is what the health department can do by law. This is our part that we are legally allowed to do by law. We can distribute clean needles in an effort to reduce the incidence of hepatitis C and HIV and other communicable disease. Based on this law, that's our responsibility as a health department.
But is distributing these needles going to do anything to affect the cause?
Yes, because we can serve as an access point to get those people into the health department, to exchange those needles, refer them to treatment, to get them help, to get them into recovery. People who participate in a needle exchange program are 5 times more likely to go into treatment and recover.
What is the percentage of people that recover from drug addiction?
I don't have that information. But I do know they're 5 times more likely to enter treatment through a needle exchange program.
The numbers that says Johnson County is 53 out of 220 counties or whatever, what is that with regard to actual cases of?
Yes, that's based on a report from the CDC
Is
based
it
on
actual
actual
cases, or
number
it
of
has
cases.
the tendency or the possibility of?
It's related to factors that make us vulnerable to an HIV outbreak.
You know how many cases we've got now in Johnson County?
Hep C is not required to be, they don't have to report it. We do at the health department. However, with the insurance, the way that it is, a lot of people have went away from the health department, are being treated at private doctors. So they don't have to report. The state is working on a mandate so that everybody has to report Hep C information, because some counties are having the same questions that you do. And it's really hard for us to get true data when not everybody is reporting.
Tell the state whenever you get a chance, if they're going to pass another mandate down there, why don't they put their own name on it and they put the bill? Because I don't know how large your budget, I got a general idea, Julie, of how big your budget is, and assuming the grant money runs out, and I'm telling you from what I'm seeing prior to the special session in Frankfurt that's coming up, when they still don't have a clue on how they're going to pay for their pension bill, and the shortfall that I saw the other day, this past week, $200 million shortfall in revenue this year already. I don't see a lot of these grants are going to be out there. And I'm worried about what happens. You start a program, get it kicked in gear maybe. I don't know how quickly or how slowly that would happen. I don't think anybody can predict that. But I agree with Paul, I just don't have a lot of confidence that a drug dealer or a drug user, when they gets ready to stick a needle in his arm, he's not gonna worry if that's a dirty needle or a clean needle or what, he's gonna get that fixed. Or at least that's kind of the discussion that I hear from a whole lot of people in my area of responsibility. But I worry about starting something that nobody can pay for. And how do you accomplish that?
As we said before, we have applied for grants, and it is not a one-time thing. It's a sustainable grant that we can apply for year after year. On the condition that that doesn't happen, the health department does have it in their budget to sustain this program and keep it going. Like I said, it would be...
Regardless of what the cost is?
We expect the cost to be roughly $12 to $15 per participant. It would depend on how many people we have in the program. The population, they have 125 participants in Pike County. They have a lot more population than we do at 23,000. I don't expect that many in Johnson County.
This is passed on bodily fluids, things like that, is that right?
Yes.
Does that mean sexual contact?
That is one of the ways, yes.
Is there any provisions in that plan to provide free condoms
We already
We
do.
already do that, and yes, that is part of the
as part of this program?
Yes, yes, it is.
Okay.
By the numbers, this report I have, they had, like I say, they had 123 people that participate at least one time. They've only had 36 people that would subject themselves to a HEPA test.
You can see the questions that we've got here, and mainly, like I said, I really believe that we dropped the ball by not following the guidelines here, that legislation, I think that was mailed out in 2015, because this puts a huge emphasis on outreach and on public knowledge and working with people and make sure everybody understands these things. Because I'm sitting there and when my phone rings 4 or 5 times a day since the city council passed theirs, and people want to know questions from me, and I tell them, well, we haven't really talked to these people yet. We'll be in that process lately, and I will let you know. I still believe that might be a good idea. I don't know if you people have considered a public meeting, or you get up and you make your case, and the public, if they want to come down and have comments, then you do that. We do that a lot in local government. Sometimes it's kind of hard to sit through, but that's kind of the way this democracy works.
We would certainly be willing to do that if that's what the court had.
Well, I'm just suggesting. I don't have a magic bullet. If I did, you know, we wouldn't be here right now. We'd have this thing worked out. But, we understand your mission, but you have to understand that we're hearing from a broader band of people than what you people are hearing from right now.
Again, if the funding is the issue, that's something that the health department is willing to take on, that responsibility at no cost to the local taxpayer. It would not be funded by local tax dollars.
Where would the funding come from then?
It would come from different programs from the state and federal dollars.
That's still tax dollars.
I said not local tax dollars.
Anybody else got any questions?
I know somebody asked me about diabetics, you know, their expense is really, you know, and it's a really a legit thing. Could they bring their needles and change them? Or do you have to be
I would
a
go
drug
back to
user?
I would go back to the purpose of the program, which is to reduce the incidence of hepatitis C and HIV, and as part of and back to reminding you that it's based on a grant. It's funded. We hope it's going to be funded through a grant. So I would let Jennifer speak to that since she worked on the grant.
So I talked to Michelle about that today. You all know how money is earmarked, and you know it is earmarked for substance abuse. It's from the Substance Abuse Committee for Policy and Change. be the same thing if we started a diabetic needle exchange, and then substance abuse people tried to come in and exchange. It's when money is earmarked, like I have money for tobacco, that's one of the other things I work on. I couldn't use that for vaccinations and things like that. It's the same thing with the schools or really anything. When you have money earmarked for that, that's the population that you're looking to target.
But you're really not allowed to ask though if they're using it for.
It is an anonymous program, but there is a series of questions that they do have to go through. But the information is anonymous. Most counties use like the first letter of your first and last name, your birth date, and a random letter. And then that's your kind of your like key code. But they, when they first come in, there's a series of substance abuse questions like, are you sexually active? How many partners do you have? What type of drugs do you use? Do you share, how often do you inject? Do you share needles? Do you use needles more than one? You know, all those substance, geared towards substance abuse information so that they know how to. Yeah, data collection for the state as well as for us to know the type of people that we're treating and how we can offer services better to them. Because we would ideally have everybody tested at least once for Hep C. I mean, anybody who's a baby boomer should have already been tested for Hep C, but they're not because they don't see the concern. So we really want to get that out to the community as well, and we do that through their initial interview.
Jennifer, I just like to say, I appreciate your all's efforts on this, I really do. I'm kind of in the middle on it right now. I can see the good things that you're trying to do, where it could help. I also see the negative on the other end. And as Tucker was saying, the community, I've just done a poll, you know, everybody I see, I've talked to health people, I've talked to a couple of doctors, I've talked to school personnel, I've talked to every John Doe I can find. And they're really clueless about it. And just to be honest with you, not to be negative, I've had 3 people who definitely say they would vote for it. So I think that, well, the public hearing to get the word out and realize we're just one person up here, you know, and we're the voice for our, you know, community right now. So I would like to have a public hearing myself and just see what everybody thinks about it. And, you know, I know you guys are in the middle of part of it, and I understand what you were saying earlier. But you have to kind of understand where we're at too. I mean, we're the voice for our people. And when you got 100 people against it, 3 people for it, then, you know, I just think it needs to be a public thing where, you know, people are more understanding what's going on.
It's like a woman I was telling the court before we come in here, a woman called me today, elderly woman, has diabetes. And she wanted to know if she could get free needles from that program. I said, ma'am, I don't really know for sure, but just the nature of the legislation that I've seen, I don't think that's the purpose. And she said, well, I can't help it, I got diabetes, and I'm not doing anything illegal or wrong. I can't get help with my needles and my, what's a little test thing? Something, whatever that thing is called. Yeah, she said, I can't get help with that, but you're going to help people out here that's doing drugs every day. And I said, ma'am, that's not comparing apples and apples there, but I said, I understand where you're coming from. So yeah, they bounce from all over the room when you're talking, but conversation is good. And a lot of times, people need to vent, they need to ask questions, they need to find out more about what is going on. And I just wish we'd done it earlier. I really believe we might have headed some of this stuff off a little bit if we'd had. I don't know.
We know that you're not providing needles to help
Yeah,
save you guys money.
and don't take this personally. Yeah, don't take this personally.
The public doesn't.
See it that way. A lot of people don't see it that way. It's hard for them to see outside the box.
Anybody else have anything that they'd like to add, any comments to? Yes.
I would, Judge.
You want to come up?
I would, yes. I'm Jerry Scott. Know most of you, Judge, and all the commissioners, everybody here. For 43 years, I've been preaching the gospel. About 20 years ago, Michael we started a Celebrate Recovery program at our church. And the court would provide, through your office, recommendations, people that could come. Of course, they came to stay out of jail. That's the reason they came. But we tried to help. I couldn't help but be amused by the reference to Tom T. Hall there earlier. I'm from Olive Hill. I'm from Carter County. So from my earliest remembrance, Tom T. was a hero. And I do like that song you referenced too, by the way. I've never been in jail, incarcerated that is, in jail. But I've been in jail a lot over the last 20 years. I remember two conversations, if I may. First one had to do with a fellow that was going into rehab. And he had a look about him. I don't know how else to say it. Brother, you know what I'm talking about, I'm sure. You work with drug addicts very long. There's called a sixth sense. Alcoholics are a little different than drug addicts. Still an addiction. And I said, where are you going? And he told me where he was going. And I said, I wish you the best. I'll be praying for you. And he said, I'll be all right. I said, you've been there before? Yes, 3 times. And he smiled. And I said, so you conned your way through all 3 of them? He said, yes, and I'll con my way through this one. I've had to get up and escort people out of church who came high. I've been under the bridges, helped them pack what little belongings they've had in black plastic bags and take them to our rescue mission, only to find that no matter how many cameras you got on them or how many visits you make to check up on them, they're going to find some way to do drugs. This is a social problem, Judge. Ladies, this is a public health problem. But this is a spiritual problem. This is a problem that goes to the heart of man. And until we start making changes there, you can throw all of the money you want to after these programs, and it's not going to help one bit. Back in the Tom T. Hall days, early 50s, mid 50s, we used to stand proud like we did a minute ago, say the pledge. But we also had a Bible reading and prayer. Then we quit that. I'll not go through the litany of things that has happened in the last 40 years for brevity's sake, but everybody here knows it. Everybody here understands that we're, as a society, the devil, Satan, which some people don't believe in. I'm like the old preacher that said he didn't believe in the devil. And someone said, you don't believe in the devil? He said, no. Oh, I believe there is a devil. But far be it from me to believe in him. I do not believe in him. Our faith in everything we do must be rooted in the Lord Jesus Christ and his resurrection from the dead. If you can get that in the heart and the mind of a drug addict, there will be no need for needles. Now, what somebody might ask, well, what's your success rate? Very small. But I will tell you that the people that have taken to heart the Lord Jesus, it has completely changed their lives. It will still do the job today. May I read one verse of Scripture, Your Honor? I had preached for I guess 25 years before I found this. I read it over and over and over, but familiar scripture must be read more closely. Preacher, we teach that, don't we? We preach that. You've got to study the Bible. We preachers need to take our own advice. Here's a verse in Revelation 18. From chapter 6 through chapter 18 is a tribulation period where things get worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. Man will not get better. He will continue to get worse. And there's one verse I want to call to your attention. It's talking about the light of the candle. Revelation 18:23. The light of the candle shall shine no more at all in thee. The light of the candle, of course, is the Lord Jesus Christ. There'll come a time when even churches, supposed mainline denominations, will not allow the light of the candle to shine. And the voice of the bridegroom, that's Jesus. The voice of the bridegroom shall be heard no more at all in thee. Now watch this part. For thy merchants were the great men of the earth. For by thy sorceries were all nations deceived. The New International Version says by their magic arts. Well, I'm a word fanatic. I like to study words. So I looked this word up in the original Greek language in which the New Testament was written. And I found a word that I was not familiar with, but it defined the times that we're in. At the end of the age, just before the Lord Jesus returns, the world will be deceived. Something will deceive mankind. What is it? The word in the Greek language for sorcery, translated sorcery in the King James Bible, the word is pharmakeia. The word is pharmaceuticals, druggists, drugs. In the end times, drugs will rule the world. I submit to your consideration that this is being fulfilled. This is why we're talking about this very subject. Throw all the money you want to at it, Judge. It's not going to fix it. The only thing that's going to fix it is a changed heart. Thank you for the time. I appreciate it.
Anybody else?
I had a couple of questions, if it'd be all right, Judge?
Yeah,
I know it's
please.
been long.
In the interest, yeah.
It's been long, it's been industry. And I speak as a father, I speak as a family member of those who are addicted to drugs. I can tell you about a fella that spent $1,000 a month for over 5 years. He's trying to help his child. Because of a child you love. Now, putting all that aside, you'll go after everything that you can. I respect you ladies and for what you believe and what you stand for. But we must be able to agree at times that we disagree on things. We don't have to get mad at each other, but we can disagree. A few questions that come to my mind, very simple ones. We have our county attorney here. She answered one of them in the beginning. The needle, if it's got the pop particular color on it, it no longer is a misdemeanor to possess it. Is that right? But if they bring that needle in, and they don't boil it, clean it, or do something with it, it will have residue in it. That makes them what?
I think the idea is the change is that it basically takes them out of the drug paraphernalia realm.
That's drug paraphernalia. It does not take them out of possession.
I think it does.
Well, if it does, then my next question is, all those that we jailed that we have to pay $40,000 a month for over there for the same charge, are we going to turn them out of jail and give them one of those needles to turn in or one of the cards to sign? In all fairness on that part. But my biggest problem, and I'm not getting into it all, but it comes to, it can come to another thing. It will help some people, I'm sure, without doubt. But then it comes down to the part that I've watched, the enabling. Whether they be a licensed doctor, whether they not be, it doesn't make any difference. The only thing that will change these people from these acts that they've got into, this lifestyle that they're living, is that they have a desire, after they find themselves so low, they can't go no farther if they don't die at that point, that they want something better for themselves. And without, I personally believe, without that and spiritual help, it'll never take place. I personally believe it's more of an enabling, and from my side that I look at. And just a few little questions. I just thought I'd throw that out there.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you for your time.
Anybody else have anything they'd like to comment on? Anything, anything you'd like to say?
We've been dealing with the drug issue now for a long time, and as you know, it really exploded in 2000 when Dr. Kahn came to town. And then it wasn't long after that we had 5 pill mills and 15-mile radius of us. Well, House Bill 1 came along about 5 years ago and made it much more difficult on the pills. Or more difficult, I should say. And the next thing I know, we've got a different form of drug that's come in. We've got methamphetamine. I think Reverend Scott can tell us that. He's seen it through there.
Yes.
And now, for some reason, that methamphetamine has become much more cheap. It's cheaper than the pills. It's coming from Mexico. That's probably where most of the needles that are being found, in the parks that you're talking about, and on the side of the street that you see. That's what most of it's being used for now, I think, majority of it. Does that help solve your issue? No, it doesn't. Is it going to get better? No, it's not. It's not going to get better. Whether you have the needle exchange program or not, it's not going to have it. It's not going to get better whether you don't have the needle exchange program. It's not going to help it. I think Reverend Scott's correct. The only way to help it is if the people that are hooked have a desire to quit and really want to quit. And I have found that rehab, forced rehab, there are a lot of cons that come through, as Reverend Scott said. They con their way through, and they go through, and they get clean for a few weeks. They get out of jail, and then they go and they come right back to it. We had a young man that was about 24 or 5 years old. I remember this about 3 years ago. And you fed him for 11 months at the jail because he was using the needles and he was in really bad shape. And his family came in and complained and said, you know, he really needs some help. Well, we tried to help him with rehab and he ran away from rehab. We put him in jail and he stayed there 11 months. 2 weeks later, he was dead. He overdosed. He went back to using the needles. So, as far from my point of view, and I see it every single day in child support, I see it every day in the juvenile court system, and with the social workers, and it is not just a health issue, it's an epidemic. It is that bad now. And it's not just bad in Johnson County or in eastern Kentucky, but it's all over our country. I don't know if the needle exchange is going to help keep these people from getting HIV or not. I mean, I haven't heard any statistics here today that gives us that information, ladies. I've not seen it. You've not provided any hard numbers. You've not provided any success stories from the other counties. And if it were me and I were making the vote today, and I don't get to make the vote, I would make a decision on this until I've got some hard numbers and some real proof that it's going to help. It's not going to help the social issue, Reverend Scott's right. It's not going to stop the drug use. But if you're trying to show these folks that you want them to do this for the public health from HIV and Hep C, you got to give them some better numbers. You got to show us something more Because there are a whole lot of people out there in the county that don't like this idea. There are more people that dislike it, probably 3 to 1 that like it, from what I'm hearing and from what the fiscal court's hearing. So if the court's gonna have a public hearing on it, that would be a good idea. But you're gonna have to bring some better numbers, and you're gonna have to sit down and prove your case. But you've not proven it today. You've not shown us what the stats are, how it's gonna help. Is it gonna change anything in terms of service guys? Is it gonna keep them from using the drug? It's not. In one way or the other, whether you grant this needle program or you don't, it's not gonna help. So, before you put the commissioners on the spot today, and put them in the spot in front of the public eye, who probably are against it, you need to prove your case. And if I were doing this, Judge, I would make a decision after I heard all the evidence, and solid numbers from solid proof before you come in here and say, I want this done, but you don't have any proof of it. I mean, you're saying we're 53rd in the county out of 120. We may be worse than that. We may be better, I don't know. But you need to show us something more, in my opinion. That's what I think.
Thanks, Mike. So what's the consensus? You interested in a public meeting? Is that something you all might be interested in doing?
Absolutely have more.
And bear in mind what Mike said about trying to get facts that you can point to.